Hello everyone, this is Dr. Leila Galban, and today I'm going to talk about the incredibly human language. Why human language is unique, and what it means to be human. A key part of the answer to this question is that language. Language is what makes us different, what sets us apart from non-humans, what allows us to build knowledge and therefore civilizations. Language is a key part of who we are as humans. And when we talk about human language, we talk about the language faculty that we are born with. What is it in our brains, in our behavior, in our ways of thinking? Language is not invented. It is something that happens to us, as many philosophers of language say. And as Chomsky in particular says, language is biological endowment, and research shows every day that it's really part of our genetic makeup. It's really part of our biological makeup. And when we talk about language, we say that it refers to the grammar and other rules and norms that allow humans to make utterances and sounds in a way that others can understand. Unique properties of language. Human language is very characterized by some unique properties. Fortunately, we have Charles Hockett, a linguist, who at the end of 50s and the beginning of 60s has elaborated his theory about the design of human language and what are the properties that characterize human language. When we talk about human language, we talk about human language faculty. We're not talking about specific language. We talk about language with a capital L. These features or these properties include displacement, open-endedness, discreteness, duality, stimulus freedom, cultural transmission, and so many properties. And I'm going to focus on some important elements in this design. Let's start with the first one, open-endedness. It refers to the creativity of the human language. The basic feature of human language is that it is creative, and we use it creatively. Through using a limited number of rules, we can provide and create an endless or an infinite number of sentences and utterances. Most of them are new. Most of them are novel. This ability of or this feature of human language, it makes it really different from other non-human languages. If you look at animal communication, for example, animals do not have this freedom. They communicate within closed system with limited possible ideas to communicate. Birds, for example, make sounds to signify danger or the location of food, but they cannot combine these chirps together to convey a novel meaning. On the other hand, humans, thanks to compositionality, which is a very important characteristic of human language that is derived from productivity or open-endedness or creativity, because all these are words really referring to the same property, which is creativity, that we as humans are able to combine words in order to make larger meanings and larger sentences and larger units. Second, displacement. And displacement refers to the ability of language to talk about things beyond the here and now. We are not blocked, and we are not imprisoned in the context and the scene horizon. We can go beyond. We can tear the fabric of place and tear the fabric of time. We can go with our imagination to places that are not there, that are not existing. We can talk about the past, that talk about the future. We can talk about imaginative places. Thanks to imagination, that we can tear the fabric and tear the limitations and break the limitations of here and now. Unfortunately, this property is not available to non-human communication systems. But we have a special, some special animals which have some degree of displacement. One of them is the bees. If you look at the bees, we find that in order to look at this, This is a bee, and she has discovered a nectar source, and she went back to the hive to tell the bees about the source and about the distance from the hive, and the quality of the nectar, and so on. Through dancing, the bee can illustrate all these or transmit all these pieces of information to the rest of the bees in the hive. And here we have Austrian ethnologist Carl von Frecht. He says that the time the dancing bee takes to complete a circuit of a figure 8 indicates the distance to the nectar source. The longer the time represents, longer flight. If you look at this, the figure on the left, on the right, we find that the level of excitement also can be illustrated in dancing. The figure on the right illustrates the 3 positions of nectars. 2 of them are on the sun line, and one of them, which is source number B, has the angle of 80 degree. And we have 3 dances, A, B, and C. Number A and the number C are similar because the 2 sources are on the sun line. And number B takes an angle. So the dancing and the quality of dancing and excitement that's shown in dancing, and the angle it takes, and the time it takes in dancing, and all these things illustrate exactly where they can reach and they can get the nectar in these sources. Of course, this illustrates a very impressive degree of displacement, but they found that this is related only to a recent piece of information that someone discovered nectar in a particular place. But if a bee discovered nectar source a week ago or 3 weeks ago, it cannot pass information about this to the rest of the bees. There is also another experiment. They put the nectar source up in a tower, and they get some bees to know the place of the nectar, and let them go back to the hive, but they were not able to convey the message to the rest of the bees, because in bees language there is no word for the vertical dimension up. Okay. Then we move to another feature, which is stimulus freedom. Stimulus freedom is related to some extent to displacement. Human communication is not bound to the stimulus. As we said before, we can go beyond the here and now, unlike non-human communication. Just try to imagine a world in which every remark was completely determined by the context. Imagine a world without imagination. Imagine a world without displacement. Imagine a world where every human communication is related to the context of here and now. Of course, it would be a very, regrettable situation. Let's go to non-human communication. Let's see how the monkeys communicate information related to the stimulus. Here is a monkey, and look at the eagle, who is looking at the eagle, and eagle is a threatening bird to monkeys. And the monkey is giving such a gesture, and of course there will be some sort of vocalization. If you look at the monkey and the snake, there is another gesture and vocalization. The monkey and the leopard, or another gesture and another position. So these are 3 positions and 3 vocalizations that are related to different sources of threats that monkeys use in order to communicate threat calls and warning calls to the rest of the members of the groups. Okay, of the group. What we want to say is that monkeys, for example, never make fake warning calls because it didn't cross their mind to do such things. And this is why we usually say that humans are able to lie, because we are not bound to the stimulus. We can go beyond the stimulus, and we can talk about things which are imaginative, things which are not real. And this explains why many humans are very skillful in deception and in lying and so on. And let's move to two interrelated characteristics, discreteness and duality. First, let's talk about discreteness. Discreteness refers to when you have sounds that are discrete, that are sharp, they are separate, they are individual. But let me talk about first how many sounds can humans in general make? How many different, unique sounds can humans make? Actually, it's about 100. All human languages can make or utilize about 100 different or unique sounds. Of course, this number varies from one language to another. In English, for example, there are about 40 sounds, 44, 42, depends on the dialect. In many languages, you can find the number could be fewer than that, could be larger than that. But anyhow, the maximum number of different sounds humans and human vocal tract can create is about 100 sounds. Does this mean that, imagine if if every sound has only one meaning, this means that humanity can do and can communicate only with 100 meanings or 100 messages, and will be locked in such a very limited number of messages, just like non-humans. Fortunately, we have a very important thing, which is discreteness. What is discreteness? Discreteness refers to the unique and the contrastive phonemes or contrastive sounds, which are in themselves meaningless. We do not know what is the meaning of ka, what's the meaning of ta, what's the meaning of ra, etc. But when we combine these sounds, we create meaning, we create words, and words refer to things in reality, to objects, to concepts, and so on. And we as a society agree on naming a particular thing or a particular object with such a meaning, with such a label, or with such a word. So words or names do not have meaning in themselves. Sounds do not have meaning in themselves. But when we combine sounds, we get words, and then we get these words in order to refer to things and use them as labels, and we as a society agree on them. And this is why an animal such as dog, it has given so many names according to the languages in which this animal is could be expressed. In Arabic, it's kalb. In English, it's dog, and in every language it gives this animal a particular name. So here we have to say that a basic feature or characteristic of human language is duality. We have discrete sound, which is the first level, okay, and the second level is the combination of these sounds in order to create words. And from this, it comes the word duality. Duality, two levels: the level of sounds and the level of meanings. Two levels: level of sound, discrete sounds, which are meaningless, and then the level of meanings, where we combine sounds in order to create meaning, create words, labels, to use them as a science to refer to things and objects in the world. Okay? Here I want to say that the number of different meanings we could express would be no greater than the number of different sounds if the sounds have meaning. Thanks God, we have a very important thing, that is duality, and that sounds do not have meaning in themselves. Let's move to another thing, another property, which is arbitrariness. Arbitrariness is the absence of any necessary connection between linguistic form and its meaning or referent. Okay, what's the relationship between dog and the animal dog in reality? No relationship, no logical relationship, no intrinsic relationship or natural relationship. It is just an arbitrary relationship. It's the word dog is a science that we use in order to label or to name this animal in reality. A contrary element or a contrary thing to arbitrariness is iconicity, and it is the opposite. It refers to a direct correlation between form and meaning. And we saw some iconic elements in the dance, in which time represents the the distance, and the angle represents angle, and so on, as we see in the previous pictures that I show you about the dancing of the bees. Related to iconicity is the idea of onomatopoeia, which is a representation of sounds by words of similar sounds, such as splash, clink, buzz, meow, moan, whoosh, thud, moo, bing, quack, boom, etc., where we have sounds correlating with words. All represent attempts to reproduce real-world sounds with English phonemes. But even these onomatopoeic items still exhibit a great deal of arbitrariness in their own form. Finally, let's look at the human vocal tract. It has been said that a basic characteristic of, or a basic source of what makes human language really different is the anatomical structure of the human vocal tract. Here is the figure on the left refers to the human vocal tract, and on the right illustrates the vocal tract of an ape. Of course, there are similarities, and there are differences. If you look at the human vocal tract, the lips, as you see, are very elastic, and muscles are very elastic, and this also applies to the tongue. The teeth are upright; they are here, but in apes they are slanting forward, as you see. The mouth is a little bit closed, which means a little bit small, which allows it to open and close so easily. If you look at the hyoid bone, it's in human being. It's not linked to any other bone, and it allows the space to have a space between the larynx and the tongue. This space, which is the pharynx, is a resonating chamber. It's used in order to amplify sound and to create speech in a convenient way. This is not the case in the anatomical vocal tract of the apes. And look at the epiglottis here, which shows the windpipe. In the apes, it's very big. And in human being, it's not that way, because this allows us to speak and to have a wider pharynx and to create speech very easily. What's important here is that it's true that the anatomical structure is different to some extent, but research, especially recent research, illustrated that it's not a problem of anatomy; it's a problem of what's there in the neurological structure of the brain in the two creatures. Here we find that highly unusual and even unique human tract. You'll find that in mammals, the vocal anatomy, especially the humans and the apes, they are similar to some extent, but humans have neural control on the processes that their brains are making that allow them to produce speech better than apes or any other mammals. Let's go to another image. This is the brain circuits, the human brain circuits. Look at this. Here we have the language areas. We have Broca's region, which is responsible for speech production in the frontal lobe, and then we have at the back we have the Wernicke area, which is responsible for the processing of speech and understanding speech. And of course, there are connections, neural connections between them. If you look at this, we find that the motor cortex here gives some sort of orders to the larynx. And humans have these connections and these circuits. On the other hand, apes do not develop these circuits, and this is why it's not easy for them to make vocalizations and to make speech. Although they have vocal folds, they have larynx just like humans. They have teeth. They have tongue, they have lips, they have all these things. So the problem doesn't lie in the vocal tract of either humans or non-humans to some extent. It lies in the neurological structure, neural connections and circuits that take place in the human brain, which are not there in or which are not completely done and well developed and well evolved in the brain of the apes and other mammals. With this, I come to the end of this lecture. Thank you, and see you next time.